If you go into something thinking it's going to fail, well, then how successful can it be? But anymore, more than 1 in 2 marriages fail in our country, and a lot of people bring things to the table now that maybe the boomer generation or the generations that have followed have not. Millennials are signing more prenups than ever before, and I think it's for a number of reasons. One, people are waiting later and later in life to get married, and they accumulate wealth along the way. Well, if you bring that to a marriage and the marriage blows up, you want to make sure what you brought to the table is protected. And when I saw this, and it's a staggering number, the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. Who knew there was such a group? 62% of divorce attorneys surveyed saw an increase in the total number of clients requesting prenuptial agreements in recent years, and 51 cited an increase in the number of millennials signing premarital agreements. So the idea here being is that, look, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but statistics would tell us it's probably not going to happen. But why the uptake in this particular age group? Someone that knows all about this, somebody that has been down the road, shall they say, and knows exactly what's going on, is Scott Reib. He's a legal expert. Matrimonial law is one of the things that he is an expert in, and he joins us here now on the AcuteHearingCenters.com hotline to talk about why millennials are getting more prenuptial agreements than ever before. And Scott, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Great, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so, prenups are not new. We see them all the time. Jeff Bezos and his wife, they didn't have a prenup, and it became the cause celeb in the world of I guess, high-rolling, high-celebrity paparazzi. But millennials are a generation that now are getting more prenups than ever before. And I'm wondering, is that specific to that generation, or is there something going on inside the world of millennials?
I think there's something going on inside the world of millennials that's making them a little different when it comes to marriage in general. Right, and so if they're different with marriage, then they're also going to be a little different with the prenups. And kind of what we're seeing is that there's this trend for them to be more thoughtful before they go into the marriage relationship, which is great. Part of that is because they're also waiting longer to get married. So where in my generation we were getting married when we were 22, 23,
yeah.
They're getting married when they're 30.
Yeah.
And so by that point, you kind of you're at a different maturity level. You've probably made a little bit of money. You might have some assets, maybe a retirement account, maybe a house. And so when you go into the marriage, you're kind of thinking, well, I've heard there's a 50-50 shot this thing doesn't work. So I want to make sure that what I bring in, I can at least go out with.
Yeah.
Not that I want it to fail, but I think they're just being a little more practical than their parents.
Well, sure, and look, I'm a baby boomer. My parents didn't have a prenup. Most moms and dads that I knew back then, of my friends, didn't have a prenup. But marriage is morphing. More than 1 in every 2 marriages fails now, and so maybe some of these millennials actually had firsthand experience in marriages that have blown up, because divorce is more and more common these days than it was, in the 50s and the 60s. So that might have something to do with it as well, right?
Sure, yeah. So, so at least 50% of the millennial population has been part of a divorced family. So that's bound to have an effect on them. Another big factor is that because the role of women in the workplace and in the home has changed so much, and they're now earning more, earning earlier, that now they're seeking out the prenup because they don't want to get hit with alimony.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the dynamic of a woman in a workforce has changed dramatically over the last 40, 50 years, and for the better. I don't think anybody would say not for the better, but you've got, you have a lot of households. I don't know the number; it would be all anecdotal on my part, but you probably have a significant increase in the last 50 years of women being the sole or the dominant provider in the household. So there's probably more awareness on their part and the power that they've accrued either through earning or just running a household.
Right. And then I think they also go into these marriages as millennials, with a better view of the position of each of their relative positions, right? They are a little more equality.
Yeah.
And so when you're both thinking that way, it also makes sense that, well, we both want to protect each other and make sure that we do so in a legal way. Mm-hmm. So, and then information is so much more available to them now that they can, they can find 10 articles in 5 minutes about prenuptial agreements and then find a lawyer for each of them and another 10. So it's just not that hard to do now, where in the past it was a pretty big deal to go get a prenuptial agreement.
Yeah, and to your point that you made just earlier, they come in to a relationship, male, female, or same sex, or whatever it may be. They come into I guess this point of matrimony with wealth they've accumulated on their own, and they want to protect that wealth, because if this thing blows up, they want to make sure they walk away with what is theirs, as opposed to having it divided equally when it may not have been an equal equation coming in. And I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're seeing this from a whole different side of it too. Nobody wants to go to court. Nobody wants to be involved in a lawsuit, whether it's domestic or it's for some other reason. And I think there's just there's a feeling there that, if you don't have to play that game, why put yourself in a position to play that game? I mean, you see this all the time, I would think.
I do, and I think you made a good point earlier that a lot of these millennials saw their parents fighting it out in court, and they would do anything to avoid that. And so they'll hold their nose and go to the lawyer's office if necessary to make sure that they're not going to fight over money.
Yeah.
If this thing doesn't work out. Premarital agreements have been around, for 1,000 years. It's not a new thing. It was a part of ancient Hebrew society, even, where they would have these marriage contracts. So it's not a new thing. It's just they're attacking it in a way that hasn't ever been done before. It'll be interesting to see over the next 10 to 15 years if the divorce statistics continue to drop as they get further into marriage. I've been married for 28 years in June. The millennials are kind of far behind on that.
Yeah.
But when they start hitting their 25th anniversaries, are the statistics going to be the same? And if they are, then are they going to be happy? I think they will be happy that they had these prenuptial agreements in place, because it will make things a lot smoother when they are making that exit.
Scott Reib's our guest. He's a legal expert. By the way, how does one become a legal expert? I'm just curious on that.
Well, first you go to law school, and then you work over 20 years in full-service law firms.
Yeah,
and
you also become a debt expert too, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
I say that as someone who's raised two attorneys, but I think what's going on here too is, back when you were younger, I was younger. I'm not that cohabitating wasn't going on. Of course, it was going on. I'm a child of the '60s. And so you did have people living together before they got married. It was more scandalous back then than it is now. But before anybody gets married in this day and age, they're more likely going to live with each other and less likely to live separately. And so there's more of a getting to know that person and what they're like and their habits, and whether or not those habits are, so grating that they can't deal with it and they have to leave each other. So there seems to be, if you want to put it this way, more front-end research going into marriages than there was when I was a kid.
Oh, definitely, and I think they're doing more front-end research on everything, from politics to religion. So for sure, when they go to marry, it comes to marriage, and especially in, I think both partners now, you find them having not maybe just a college degree, but they're also getting master's degrees. Yeah. And so they're looking at this thing and making plans way ahead of time. I've got a 20-year-old who is always making, he's planning out. He's 2 summers ahead. He's always making the plans on where he's going and what his next move's going to be.
Good for him.
And and then I see his girlfriend, for instance, doing the same thing. Yeah. They're both trying to make sure that they know where they're going. They've got a good plan. There's stability with the plan. And I think that's something that gets overlooked with the millennials because they're so maligned. But I think really they are very smart, and they're constantly taking in information, and they're planning. They're looking at what we're doing and saying, well, that didn't work. We don't want to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, let's just face it, Scott, they're smarter than we are. right? I mean, they are.
Sure.
and that's good because we're going to need them when we, move into our golden years in retirement. So stay smart and stay employed. Scott Reib, always great catching up with you. Thanks for this, for your time here today at 700 WLW. More millennials than ever are signing up for prenups. Scott, thanks again, man. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, Ken.
Millennials, by the way, take their pets so seriously that they are part of prenuptial agreements more and more and more, up 51%. Maybe they're just smarter than we are. Some of them will tell you, yeah, we are. It's coming up on 151, 700 WLW. After the news at the top of the hour, why boomer women are having a difficult time rekindling their, shall we say, love life after divorce. Is there a reason why, and is it too simplistic to say, well, boomer men want women that are 2 or 20 or 30 years younger than them second time around? I think it's more than that. We're going to be joined by someone who calls herself Hot Mama. Yeah. 151 News Radio 700 WLW.